Extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence. This is kind of a watchword I've been hearing a lot, particularly on what you might call science channels, although I'd say they're channels of scientism. I'm not going to go into scientism. Um, Basically, it's the idea that only science can lead to true knowledge. There are big problems with that. But again, not going to deal with that here, maybe at another time, or you can look it up. If you hold that position, you may not hold to it for long when you see some of the critiques. Could be wrong. Maybe there are good reasons to believe that, but I have a hard time with it. There was a point in time in history, going back to about Aristotle, I guess, where it was believed that the center of the universe was the center of the earth. And you can find models, they're easy to find, just Google them, where it shows the earth at the center and there's these sort of planar existences around it. And the idea was, as I was taught it, was that at the center of the earth was, the closer you get to the center, the closer you get to imperfection. And the more you moved out, the more you went towards perfection. So the whole idea of pointing down to the earth to signify hell and pointing up to heaven came from that. Then along came, and I guess I would call that a Terran-centric view. Then along came the heliocentric view, the idea that actually the earth isn't the center of the universe, and that the sun is the center of the solar system, and so forth. Okay. This was unquestionably an extraordinary claim. But what is it for something to be extraordinary? Well, if you look at the etymology, it comes from the Latin and basically means out of the ordinary. I think the claim that there's a God is not entirely extraordinary. And that would lead me to believe that this claim that extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence wouldn't be all that effective of a tool for determining truth claims about God. Namely, because it may not be, it's debatable whether that's actually extraordinary. It's a fairly ordinary claim throughout human history. That doesn't make it true, right? We know that. But I'm more dealing with this sort of sloganeering through problems. But the heliocentric view is not extraordinary. It's quite ordinary. If I came to you now and said the earth is the center of the universe, that would be extraordinary. But at one time, that was ordinary. What does that mean? I think it basically means this statement is not a scientific statement at all. I don't even know if it is a philosophical statement. It's an emotive one. I believe that this is a emotional test. It says, if you don't meet this emotive criterion that I've set up, I won't consider anything you have to say. I don't believe that I can sit here and divine every single person's motive that have said this word and said this phrase. In fact, many people probably said it and hadn't really thought about it very much. But the fact is, many times when there are extraordinary claims and you have evidence to the contrary, the evidence, honestly, a lot of times, evidence is kind of normative and makes the claim normative too. And sometimes that's even disappointing. I've thought many times, I'm not impressed with the ontological argument for God's existence. I never have been. It feels like a logical puzzle box to me more than anything. That's just my opinion. Some people are very impressed by it, including some atheists. I just personally am not impressed by it. But let's just say it proved the existence of God. That's it. Everyone agrees. I think it'd be disappointing myself. I already believe there's a God, so I don't really need a system that proves it. But I'm saying I've found that a lot of times evidence that proves things ends up being far from extraordinary. It usually ends up being kind of disappointing. I was trying to explain parsimony to my dad one time, which is Occam's razor, the idea that the simplest answer oftentimes is Not always, but oftentimes is a good tool for divining whether you're getting to the right answer. We were looking at the special on the Loch Ness Monster, and this picture, I am convinced, I wish I could flash it on the screen right now. I'm convinced it's a twig. Convinced of, because the waves near the waves near it are so big. This just has to be a little twig. And if you look at the branches in the local area, it looks just like one of these branches. It doesn't prove anything, but it's good evidence. And I looked at my dad and I was saying, a lot of people believe that the simplest answer oftentimes is the right one. And he said, well, what do you mean? And I said, is it more likely we're looking at a close-up picture of a twig in the local area, or a prehistoric beast, the one that survived, a plesiosaur, whatever it's called, has survived eons in this one little lock in the middle of nowhere? And he goes, huh. It was really funny. But think about that. Is that extraordinary evidence? Now, if you think it is, and I don't, what is that? Is that emotion? Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like this whole thing is just an emotive test. That's just my opinion.